Rockstar Games recently released Grand Theft Auto 3 for the PlayStation 2, and from what we've played of it, it's going to be one of the best games to come out this year for the PlayStation 2. It basically takes everything that was great about the first two Grand Theft Auto games and just brings it into the next generation of consoles. You've got the full 3D perspective now instead of that old 2D top-down look, and just the behind-the-back perspective just really makes the game a lot iller than the first two games were. It's just, all the violence is still the same, but when you're looking at a guy just shoot another guy, that guy keeling over, it's a much more grim, realistic game. And as such, it's definitely not for kids. If there was any game that clearly defines the M rating, Grand Theft Auto 3 is the one. Not only does it have graphic violence, but the storyline centers on, well, crime, basically. And it touches on drugs. There's lots of sexual innuendo, and basically it just runs the gamut of things you don't want kids to see. So if you're not comfortable watching R-rated movies like, say, Goodfellas or Heat, then Grand Theft Auto 3 is definitely going to be a turn-off. One thing GTA 3 does that the other two games didn't do is it actually delivers a really cohesive plot. The previous games just kind of gave you all these random missions. You would go out and just be like, okay, you have to go blow up this guy. You have to go kill these people, and it got old really quickly. What this one does is that, the missions are basically the same, but the little cutscenes between them really tie it together and give it a plot line. You start out working for the Mafia, then the Mafia double crosses you, you end up going to a different part of town, working for somebody else. So you're constantly kind of moving around, playing the gangs off each other, and it turns into a pretty compelling story as it goes along. What really makes the story great is it's supported by some really great voice work. They got some really good talent in the game. Michael Rappaport is in it, of Metro fame, as well as Joe Pantoliano, Frank Vincent, and lots of others. But even the characters that aren't like the principal characters in it, that are just done by stock kind of voice actor type people, everything is just really well done, and it definitely lends the game an atmosphere that wouldn't be there otherwise. Like the other Grand Theft Auto games, GTA 3 really brings together, a lot of freedom. There's a whole lot to do in the city. It's a very living, breathing city with a lot of pedestrians, and the 3D nature just makes it really seem incredibly immersive. You can stick to the storyline and go that route and play the game the way it was really designed to be played, and that'll get you to the end of the game. Or you can take breaks and just kind of do stuff. There's a lot of little side missions. You can get into cop cars and do vigilante cop missions. Ambulances, you can go pick up the sick and take them to the hospital. Taxis, you can do like a little crazy taxi style side mission sort of thing. Or you can just cause trouble in the streets. You can pretty much steal any car you want. You just walk up, push a button, he'll jump right in, throw the guy out of the car, and then you're going. You can beat people with bats. You can beat them with your hands. There's a lot of different weapons. And basically kind of just go on a one-man crime spree with no real point to it, except it's incredibly fun. Of course, doing this does alert the cops to your presence, and you will kind of attract different levels of police response the iller your crime spree gets. And when it starts out, cops will chase you a little bit. They won't go all out to get you. If they just see you stealing a car, or see you punch someone out, not that really big of a deal. If you start stealing cop cars, pointing guns at cops, it gets a little more dramatic. They don't go away quite as easily. They try and ram you off the road and bust you. Past that, the cops eventually just kind of give up on busting you and just try and gun you down in the street. That usually requires you to do something pretty bad. Later on, you'll see helicopters, which you can, of course, shoot out of the sky with a rocket launcher, and even more varied forms of police response, including FBI, who basically roll up in an unmarked car. 4 of them jump out of the car with automatic rifles and gun you down where you stand. And then once you get really crazy, the military gets involved. That can only really happen towards the end of the game, but the military pretty much just puts you down. Overall, Grand Theft Auto 3 is just an amazing game. The freedom that it allows you, combined with the compelling story elements used throughout the game, really just make it a game that anyone can get into, provided that they're okay with the subject matter. It's, again, a very violent game. Probably the most violent game you'll see in a long time. Shooting people, pulling people out of cars, cop cars blowing up. Not for everyone, but if it's something you can handle and something that sounds interesting to you, this is definitely a game you should pick up. It's a thrill ride that you won't soon forget.
Grand Theft Auto Vice City is the follow-up to last year's Grand Theft Auto 3. It's not a full sequel to the game. It keeps a lot of the same mechanics that were found in Grand Theft Auto 3, but like any good sequel, it's just bigger, badder, and better. They've managed to cram a whole lot more content in there and made some really nice gameplay additions that will freshen up the game for anyone who's played GTA 3 to death. Probably the biggest obvious change in the gameplay is the addition of motorcycles to the world. There are quite a few different two-wheelers in the game. You can ride scooters and mopeds. There's street bikes, dirt bikes, and big old hogs that you can just really get moving on. A lot of the faster motorcycles are, the fastest vehicles in the game once you get them up to their top speed. But there's some danger associated with that because, pretty much, any, decent-sized crash is going to send you flinging off the bike, which is really cool to see. You take a little bit of damage when you wreck, which is really nice touch. Vice City also lets you go indoors. You can't walk into every single building in the game, but the buildings that you can walk into are used really well. There's a brief load time associated with walking inside a building, but it doesn't take very long, and the insides of the buildings actually look really nice. The dance club, your hotel, they all look pretty striking. Other smaller tweaks to the gameplay include the ability to duck, which is good because you can get behind cover and it also steadies out your aim. Also helping out your aim is a completely redesigned targeting system. This was one of the minor problems in GTA 3 that kind of let cops sneak up behind you and things like that. But the targeting system in Vice City is much easier to deal with. It'll kind of automatically target your largest foes instead of having to force you to cycle through all your different targets to get to the one you're trying to hit. This is a pretty huge improvement and definitely cleans up the targeting issues from GTA 3 nicely. As those of you following the game's development already know, Vice City puts you in the role of Tommy Vercetti. Tommy is played by Ray Liotta, and he does a very nice job at voicing the character.
I did not go to law school for this. Okay, now what the hell are we gonna do?
Shut up, sit down, relax. I'll tell you what.
It's a pretty big difference having the character speak in Vice City because the character in GTA 3 was completely silent. That reflects kind of a larger change in the story overall. Rather than just kind of take orders from people, in Vice City you'll kind of eventually become the crime lord of sorts of Vice City and be calling a lot of the shots on your own. Since Tommy will sort of be calling the shots through a good portion of the game, you'll get your missions from a lot of different sources. You'll start out with your own mansion, of course, which lets you kind of shake down people for protection money and basically do kind of mobster sort of things. Like any good mobster, you can also invest your money, in this case into real estate. There's a few different buildings in Vice City that you can purchase, and purchasing these various buildings will let you do mission branches that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So if you buy the taxi company, you'll be able to do a series of taxi missions. If you buy the Malibu Club, you'll be able to do a series of Malibu Club missions. There are a handful of different properties throughout the game that once you purchase them, open up these missions, and that's kind of how you advance the story along in the later portions of the game. The early portions of the game are set up a lot like GTA 3. You'll have multiple sources to go to, some of which are required, some of which aren't. Some of the optional mission branches include going to the Cubans who are warring with the Haitians, so then you can do missions for the Cubans, and then you'll eventually do missions for the Haitians, and they'll kind of be warring with one another. You'll be caught in the middle, that sort of deal. You also get missions where you'll be kind of devaluing real estate by blowing up buildings, and doing a lot of really cool mission stuff. The mission structure in the game is a lot more complex than GTA 3's. All along, Rockstar has kind of pointed to the bomb the base mission from GTA 3, where you kind of had to do a few different things to complete the mission, a multi-step process to complete it, and a lot of the missions in Vice City are like that. Some of the steps in a multi-part mission aren't all that important. You know, it'll have you go pick up a change of clothes or, you know, go to a respray shop, but a lot of the multi-part missions are definitely deeper and a lot better constructed than many of the fetch missions found in GTA 3. There are a whole lot of vehicles to deal with in Vice City. Of course, there's the new motorcycles. There's also a wide variety of different cars. You'll find kind of your basic 80s sedans. You know, since it's 1986, you'll see a lot of the kind of larger, basic-looking cars. There's also a lot of the kind of Italian sports car type stuff. You'll see cars that look like Lamborghinis or Ferraris. You'll see a car that sort of looks like a Porsche. And, you know, the standard array of trucks and things like that. There's really a lot of different cars, and as you play the game, you'll see a lot wider variety of cars on the roads. Since Vice City is a Florida city loosely based on Miami, there's also a lot of water to deal with. So the game has a wide variety of boats for you to control as well. There's speed boats, you know, you'll find sailboats, you'll find big cruise ships that you can get on, and the steering in the different boats is a lot different. You'll find different top speeds, and the handling on the different boats is also pretty different from boat to boat. Finally, in the vehicle department, you'll do a lot more flying in Vice City than you did in GTA 3. After a few of the major plot twists, you'll find yourself with the ability to just kind of hop in a helicopter and take off. And you can fly high above the city, kind of go wherever you want to go, land it just about wherever you want. There's a lot of rooftops that you can land on. Some of the city's really high skyscrapers are too high for you to land on, but you know, I'd say 99% of the city you can get to by helicopter, which is really cool. When you get up there, you can just kind of see, all the way from one half of the city to the other, and it's pretty striking. You also fly a seaplane, and there's a few other, hidden ships in there that you can fly around that are pretty impressive. Vice City has a much higher weapon count than GTA 3 did, but it doesn't really feel that much different from GTA 3. Weapons are broken up into classes this time, so you'll be able to hold one submachine gun at a time, one shotgun, one sniper rifle, and that sort of thing. You'll start the game with kind of the lower tiered weapons, and then as you move through the game, you'll find a better submachine gun with a faster rate of fire, and you'll find a shotgun that fires a lot faster, a sniper rifle that's a much steadier shot, and basically the weapons improve over time. You also find a good deal of heavy weapons later in the game. Your rocket launcher, your Gatling gun, your M60. These are all pretty cool, and it's kind of a nice touch. What they've done is your movement speed is different depending on what weapon you're currently holding. So if you have a pistol or a submachine gun, you can run at full speed. If you have a shotgun, you can't run at all, but you can still move at normal speed. But if you have, say the chainsaw or the flamethrower out, you're going to kind of lumber up the street really slowly. It's pretty cool. It makes kind of an interesting balance between, getting the heavy weapons out and, kind of staying with the lighter guns that let you get away from the action in a hurry if you need to. You also find more melee weapons in Vice City. Again, you can only hold one of these at a time, but you can get a baseball bat, which is standard from GTA 3. You can also get a machete, a hatchet, a screwdriver, a hammer, a chainsaw. So there's kind of a cool variety here. The machete is cool. It kind of acts a lot like the baseball bat, and the chainsaw probably isn't quite as satisfying as you would think a chainsaw could be, but the weapons are all pretty functional. You also find some wackier stuff kind of out in the world. For instance, if you get in a golf cart out on the golf course, you'll get a golf club, which basically acts a lot like the baseball bat, but makes a different noise, and there's just something charming about beating someone to death with a golf club. While Vice City basically runs on the same engine that powered GTA 3, the team at Rockstar North have made quite a lot of improvements to the game visually. The first thing you'll notice is that the draw distance is a lot further out. So when you're driving up the road, you can basically see a lot further ahead of you. This really helps when you're up in a helicopter or a plane, because you can just see for miles, and it's really striking. It looks really, really nice. All the textures in the game are really well done. Tommy's Hawaiian shirt and his various suits. The game is really bright and colorful. You kind of figure, this is what Miami would look like in 1986. The fashion's all really well done. There's some really great lighting effects in the game. You'll see cars kind of coming into the distance and the sun kind of shining off their windshield. And that's a really nice effect. At night, some of the buildings will light up with neon, and that just all looks really great. There's a lot of really nice lighting effects in the game, and overall, it just really looks fantastic. You know, stylistically, the car models, the player models, the clothing, everything is just kind of spot on what you would expect from this sort of parody of you know, kind of 80s television and film. And you know, the team has really done a great job with the style in the game. As awesome as the game looks graphically, there are a few slight problems with the frame rate. When you get into these big police chases, and you see, you know, a ton of cars on screen wrecking into each other, and particle effects kind of shooting off all of these cars as they crash. The frame rate will take a hit, similar to the one found in GTA 3. But considering, you know, how much better the game looks than GTA 3 in every other way, it's not really that big of an issue, and the slowdown never really gets in the way of gameplay at all. As important as the graphics are to kind of setting the tone and the style for the game to take place in 1986, the audio really does a great job of that as well. You know, all the game sound effects are really spot on, from the weapons fire to the sound of squealing tires to tires being shot out, to, you know, glass breaking, explosions, just all the weapons chopping people up, the pedestrian voices. You know, everything in the game just sounds correct, you know, like it really belongs there. The voice acting, again, is really amazing throughout the game. Ray Liotta does a fantastic job, and he's joined by a pretty amazing cast of characters. There's a lot of Hollywood voice talent in there. You find Gary Busey, Philip Michael Thomas, which, you know, he was in Miami Vice, so if you're going to get someone to be in Vice City, Philip Michael Thomas is the man. And, you know, he kind of plays your sidekick character in a couple of spots, so it's you know, kind of a funny nod to the past there. You also find Luis Guzman, Danny Trejo, and you know, a pretty wide collection of others. All the game's voices are really believably done, and you know, they're done in a humorous way. You'll find some kind of, you know, stereotypical things here and there about the 80s. You'll find the typical Valley Girl kind of thing, but it rarely feels hokey. GTA 3's radio stations were also an important part of the audio, helping to kind of set the tone for the game. In Vice City, they're probably even more important to kind of put you in that 1986 setting. You'll find radio stations devoted to different styles of music. There's a rock station, a pop station, a new wave station, a Spanish language station. There are 2 talk radio stations, and you know, each one of the stations has its own vibe, and of course its own DJ, its own set of commercials, and they all really kind of put you in the world of Vice City. While the DJs sort of took center stage in GTA 3, the music really does so in Vice City. The music is all licensed, and they've actually released a 7-disc soundtrack set of the music. You'll find a lot of different artists on the soundtrack, and they all kind of create a lot of moments where a song will come on and you'll go, oh my god, I can't believe they put that song in here. There's Michael Jackson, Judas Priest, Kool and the Gang, Nena, you know, get some 99 Luftballons on. There's just the music is really fantastic. It covers a ton of ground genre-wise, and you know, really brings a lot to the atmosphere of the game. In the end, Vice City is a classic example of how to design a sequel. It keeps everything that was fantastic about GTA 3, fixes a lot of the smaller problems that the game had, and just adds a ton of content. You know, the missions are bigger, they're better designed. You'll do bigger and better things. You kind of feel like you're really more of a part of the story rather than just kind of running errands for the real players in the game. In Vice City, Tommy is the player in Vice City, and you're kind of running around doing his bidding, or in this case, your bidding. All the additional content, the weapons, the vehicles, the audio, you know, just everything is a notch or 2 above what GTA 3 was. And you know, as a result, you know, anyone who was a fan of GTA 3 and you know, anyone who's a fan of games in general should get a really big kick out of the game. how do you follow up runaway successes like 2001's Grand Theft Auto 3 and 2002's GTA Vice City? I mean, GTA created the formula and Vice City gave it that sense of style. But San Andreas takes the series to a new level by taking the action statewide and providing a delirious amount of variety in its gameplay. I'm just going to touch on a few key points here. If you're looking for the full story, I recommend reading our full review. But the one thing you need to know is this: San Andreas does a fantastic job of living up to the Grand Theft Auto name. In fact, it's arguably the best in the series. Without saying too much about the game's story, it deserves to be said that the characters you meet along the storyline of San Andreas are some of the best parts of the game. They're terrifically portrayed by a skilled cast of voice actors, and they lead you down a number of really memorable storylines throughout the game. There are plenty of high points, but the one worthy of special mention is James Woods, who plays a character named Mike Torino. James Woods turns in a great performance, and he has some fantastic dialogue to work with. The game drops you into the Los Angeles-like Los Santos, and here the game introduces you to many of its new features. You'll ride a BMX bike almost immediately, for example, and later on you'll become embroiled in a deep turf war with the other gangs of the region. Once you leave Los Santos, the game takes on a more traditional Grand Theft Auto type of feel, relying solely on completing missions to progress the story. They'll seem pretty familiar if you know the series well. You'll drive people around, beat people up, perform drive-by shootings and the like, as well as the occasional casino heist and seizure of secret military hardware. There's been a lot of talk over some of the game's new features, particularly CJ's new ability to gain weight, stay in shape, build muscle, and so on. It's all true. You need to work out in order for CJ to perform his best in activities such as sprinting, jumping, and swimming. The good news is, as much impact as it can have on your performance and look in the game, the work you need to put into it is really quite small. Over time, CJ will develop a number of other stats as well. Respect is a big one. While you won't get money from every single mission you complete, you will almost always gain respect, which affects your ability to recruit some members of your gang to roll alongside you. You'll also gain skill in wielding each weapon in the game, as well as different vehicle categories such as cars, boats, airplanes, and motorcycles. In the case of weapons, it will increase your range and accuracy, and ultimately it'll let you dual wield some weapons, while the vehicle stats largely tighten up the controls for you. Overall, the statistics have a solid impact on the gameplay with minimal need for management, and rarely, if ever, stand in the way of progress. The gameplay in San Andreas is a lot like the previous games in the series, but in a lot of ways it's more refined. The missions are less frustrating because they do a better job of letting you know what you're supposed to do and where you need to go to do it. The main story arc is lengthy, and just sticking to the main plot will sign you up for a 30 to 35 hour experience. If you're one of those people that just like to learn the cheat codes and cause as much chaos as possible, San Andreas has a lot to offer you as well, though you should probably try to progress in the story far enough to open up the bridges that connect the game's three cities. The PlayStation 2 isn't getting any younger, and neither is the engine that powers San Andreas, but the developers have managed to squeeze out a little more power here, and the resulting product looks pretty fantastic. A number of effects, from the heat wash of a dry sunny day to the gritty film grain look of a rainy one, do a lot to set apart the game's three primary locales and the outlying territory in between. The cities all look great and do a lot to match their real-world counterparts, and the countryside in between gives a fresh face to the consistently urban-inspired look of the series. Countering that great look is a fairly unstable frame rate, but the game always runs at a playable speed. When you combine the good with the bad, San Andreas still looks really great overall. The audio in the game is no slouch either. As mentioned previously, the voice work and the script are both top-notch. While the in-car radio soundtrack isn't quite as inspired as that of Vice City, it has a number of high points, such as the hip-hop station in the city of Los Santos. Other sounds, such as the prattle of pedestrians around the city, the unique sound of each vehicle's engine, and the satisfying sounds of gunfire, all round out the game's audio quite well. Historically, games that have tried to do a million things tend to just end up as a disorganized mess. San Andreas, however, manages to pack in a lot of varied action, and better still, it does almost all of it really, really well. The story is great, the characters are memorable, and above all, it's just insanely fun to play. To sum it all up, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is a thrill ride that shouldn't be missed. Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories for the PlayStation 2 is kind of a weird case. The game was actually released first on the PSP back in October, so it's really kind of the first case of a game going from the PSP to the PlayStation 2. There haven't really been too many changes made, so if you've played the PSP version of the game, you're pretty much done. You don't need to go back and play this PS2 version. But if you missed out on the PSP game, you'll find a lot of that game's flavor and stuff on the PlayStation 2. Unfortunately, when you can actually compare it directly to games like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and the other main GTA games, this game's problems stand out pretty dramatically. Of course, all that's offset by a budget price, so that helps.
Liberty City Stories tells the story of a guy named Tony Cipriani. He's your typical kind of mobster, mid-level guy working for the Leones. And as you go, you defend the Leone crime family from all comers. You're basically taking on a lot of different tasks in typical Grand Theft Auto style fashion. The missions, however, were originally designed for the PSP, and they're actually a lot shorter than what you've come to expect from the more recent Grand Theft Auto games. You won't find these big, epic, multi-part missions here. It's generally, pick up a car, drive it someplace, go kill a guy, get his phone, bring it back to somewhere else. Real kind of basic stuff. The other big problem with Liberty City Stories actually has nothing to do with its roots as a PSP game, but more has to do with its roots as kind of a side story to the main GTA games. You really don't get the feeling that as much attention was paid to putting the characters into interesting situations, and the game wasn't really written with a whole lot of depth to it. So the characters aren't really likable, they aren't really that interesting, and the story just kind of goes nowhere. There are a few blown chances here and there. Eventually you kind of become a made man and go rise through the ranks in the mafia. But this is just treated with like a cutscene that just kind of fades out and fades back up with you wearing different clothes. It's not going as far as you would expect like a major event in the main character's life to go. As a port from the PSP to the PlayStation 2, Liberty City Stories on the PS2 is a really murky, kind of dark-looking game. It might have a longer draw distance than the PSP version did, but at the same time, like the character models and stuff like that really are pretty low poly. It's really not that impressive looking. The frame rate hitches up in a lot of situations as well, so it's not a very good-looking game on top of all that. The sound effects in the game are basically what you would expect from GTA. You get the typical gunfire and police helicopter noises and things like that. The game's characters all speak with real voices. You might not recognize much of the cast from other things, like they've had this kind of running trend where they're bringing in a lot of pop culture names and stuff for parts in GTA games. This one's really bare bones. In much the same way, there aren't a whole lot of licensed songs on the soundtrack either. They just kind of went for trying to make songs that sound like 1998 as opposed to actually going out and getting all the really bad boy band stuff that was around in that time, which would have been really good driving around and running over cops music. All things considered, GTA Liberty City Stories is a good game, and it's largely due to its budget price. That really helps you overlook a lot of the game's problems. But again, if you've played it on the PSP, there's really no need to go back to it. This is effectively the same game with the multiplayer stuff stripped out. But if you can set your expectations properly and not expect a big, epic GTA-like adventure, and you're looking for more GTA-style action, Liberty City Stories has exactly that. So much has already been said and written about Grand Theft Auto 3 and its follow-up Grand Theft Auto Vice City that I'm really just going to cut to the chase here. If you want a full explanation of the games, the text review goes into a little more depth. So let's just focus instead on these Xbox versions of the game and what actually makes them the best versions of the games ever released. The main difference found in the Grand Theft Auto Double Pack is that the graphics have been bumped up quite a bit, actually. These games started out on the PS2 and then moved to the PC. And the games were cleaned up when they were released on the PC, but then now another level of kind of graphical sheen and polish have been added on top of that PC version. So now you're seeing things like improved lighting. You'll see reflections on the cars. The fire will kind of spout off a little more light to it that makes it look a little more realistic. The game's in Dolby Surround 5.1. The control works really well. That actually takes a little bit of getting used to if you're more familiar with the PS2 or PC versions, but the control in the Xbox version works just as well. The game's got custom soundtrack support just like the PC version. Basically, these games are still great. And the enhancements that have been made to both games really serve to just kind of spruce it up and make it, still respectable by today's standards. So GTA 3 doesn't really look like a 2-year-old game. It might not look, like top of the line, the very top of the Xbox quality ladder, but the games certainly look great. The draw distance have been increased out a little bit. The frame rate is mostly pretty solid. What's most important is that the game still plays incredibly well. You see far enough to do things. The whole world just feels alive. The whole world just looks fantastic. On top of all of that, you're getting 2 full games for the price of basically 1 full game. And these are 2 of the fullest full games you'll ever find. The games have just tons of missions, tons of things to do, and on top of that, there's a lot of great optional stuff you can go do. You can drive taxis, pizza delivery, all kinds of just extra little things that really do help the world kind of come alive, and it feels like a whole lot more than than it actually is in some cases. The game just really comes together. Every single facet of the game works to enhance the other facets of the game, and by and large, you know, they're two of the most complete packages that you're going to find out there. If you are either looking to play these games again or an Xbox owner that hasn't played them yet, the Xbox is really the best place to play both of these games, so don't hesitate to pick this package up immediately.
Attention all units. Some psychos are robbing the bank in Palomino Creek.
Shit! I just bought another donut. Don't criminals have any consideration?
Pick it up, Valero, you retarded asshole!
Okay, you know the drill with this. The Grand Theft Auto series comes out on the PS2 in October, then 6 or 7 months later it appears on the Xbox and PC. The exclusivity clause is up, and now we have 2 more versions of San Andreas to look at. The core game is the same, which of course means that it's fantastic. If you haven't played the game yet and you only own an Xbox or a PC, then by all means, run right out and get it. But if you're a multi-platform player, each of the 2 new versions has its own set of pluses and minuses, which makes the task of choosing which version is best a little more difficult. Let's start with the Xbox version. Ideally, you'd expect the Xbox version to look a little bit better than the original PS2 release, and for the most part that's true. However, the game is super jaggy. The aliasing on just about every surface really pops out, especially when you're running at 480p. Like at times I felt like my eyesight was going, or that I was watching a 3D movie without the glasses on or something. The control has been changed up just like it was changed for the Xbox versions of GTA 3 and Vice City, so your gas and brake are on the triggers. For the most part, the game controls just fine, though the flight stuff is a little crazy. Nothing you can't get used to, though. The other stick-out moment of the Xbox version is its load times. While they're probably on par with the PS2 version of the game, perhaps a little longer in spots, the game goes out of its way to let you know that it's loading. The PS2 version just hit all the loading once you got into the game. Like when you go get a haircut, the barber covers Carl's head, and when he moves out of the way, the new hairstyle's loaded up, and it's like magic. Here, like a big black loading bar appears while it loads, the hairstyle. It's just weird. The PC version of the game doesn't have any of those loading issues. In fact, it's the fastest loading version of the game, which isn't really much of a surprise. Also, it has the potential to be the best looking edition because you have a lot of graphical options to play with. Running at a higher resolution is the obvious choice, and it supports several resolutions, including some for those with widescreen displays. There's a slider that you can move to turn up or reduce the draw distance. The GTA series is pretty notorious for having a lot of draw-in and fogging effects. You can all but eliminate that on the PC. You also have options for anti-aliasing, but at some point, you're going to need a gargantuan machine to run the game with everything turned all the way up. A system that meets the recommended system requirements should do just fine with most of the settings turned up a bit. While the graphics aren't really a problem, the audio is a bit of a different story. We played the game on a few different machines. One machine didn't have audio trouble at all. Lucky. The others did have some real crazy stuff going on. One test machine would simply lose all voice and sound effects from time to time. All you could hear is the music, and occasionally an engine noise would break through the silence too. The third machine, the fastest of them all, would start playing loud, crazy sound effects. Whenever you load a saved game, it sounded more like there was a helicopter trying to land inside Carl's head. If you drove away from the save point, the sound would eventually stop. The PC version lets you play with a dual analog controller if you're going for a console-style experience, but the game also plays just fine with a mouse and keyboard. With a mouse for aiming, you lose the lock-on abilities found in the gamepad control scheme, but considering it's stupid easy to line up headshot after headshot, the game's probably a little easier with the mouse. Driving with the keyboard, however, leaves a little bit to be desired. The PC version of the game would be the easy choice if not for the random audio bugs, but since they do appear to be fairly random, it's certainly possible that some players won't run into them. For the rest of us, perhaps a patch will appear at some point in the future. But even when you take these bugs and the occasional flaws of the Xbox version into consideration, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is still an amazing game. There's a ton to do and see, and most importantly, all the stuff fits right into the context of the game. The dialogue's fantastic, the characters are memorable, and all in all, you should definitely play it.